Good evening, everybody. Hope all is well. We are going to commence the Northwest Planning Land Use and Port Committee meeting. I know it has been a while, but there has definitely been a lot of updates that we want to catch up on as a community and neighborhood. And so I want to thank everybody for joining today. But also in the beginning of this call, we can kind of just go through a roll call as there is a technical snafu here where one person seems to be representing the whole meeting when there's multiple people in here. And so if we could just get a attendance, if you will, for the record. My name is Kane, representing Northwest as a co-chair in this planning meeting. If you could go about and say your name, and let me also double check to make sure that the attendees also have an opportunity to speak as well.
Jason Herring, Northwest and Pedro, Planning and Land Use.
Tim Rampy,
Thomas Norman,
Brooke Smith,
Oh, Adrian?
Fernandez,
Yes.
and I believe there's one more person, Lewis Hamilton. Are you there?
Phyllis Venable, San Pedro resident.
Oh, thank you so much. Good to hear from you. All right, so we're going to commence this meeting here. We get to get the agenda up. Host tools. Okay, we've had a small conversation, but ultimately we're going to get down to business because there's a lot of things to cover today. I'm also joined here tonight with my co-chair, Dr. Thomas Norman, who is also a co-chair of the Planned Land Use and Port Committee. And so that is a part of the welcome. But Thomas, also let me know when you're fully situated. Okay.
yeah, sorry, I've got to check in the hotel, so I will.
Okay, thank you. And so I'll keep rolling till you get situated. There has just at the top of the call, everybody, there's been some changes in our membership to our particular committee. It should be noted that Diane Nave as well as Pat Nave have submitted letters of resignation, excuse me, to this particular committee. We had an opportunity to thank them for their service. We did that by presenting them with an award and a pen to the both of them and wish them well. We also, since, and this is more on the housekeeping side, we have received a letter of resignation for a Linda Alexander of Northwest. And so I have also received that letter as well. So I want to thank you all for attending tonight. I know that we're very busy, but we are looking to help the community. That being said, I know that Thomas is going to be updating on Phillips, the Cabrillo Beach update, Olympics, West Harbor update, but also the Gibbs, and I'll be talking about the Gibson chassis project and parking lot and a few other items after that. But if it's okay with everybody else, can we open it up for some public comment ahead of those items? Yes. Okay, so no one has any public comments or any additives to the agenda or discussions? Okay, there being none, I'm going to forward the meeting to item point 2E, which is the Gibson John Gibson chassis project in parking lot update. Okay. All right, no objections. I wanted to update this particular committee that the developer, which is being led but with Mr. Mike Tunney, we had an opportunity, him and I had an opportunity to meet on a one-on-one, and what I discussed with him was the communications on getting approval and not only how to work best with the Northwest uh, community. I emphasized in that particular one-on-one meeting with him that there is a need for education on the process when it comes to developers and the projects in the particular Northwest community. I apprised or made him aware, as he's full aware of the projects that are in the area that's impacting the community. And we centered that conversation around traffic. As we all know, there is the Vincent Thomas Bridge, which will be having some closures. There is Phillips 66 on the long horizon, which will be having some changes when it comes to the traffic patterns. And then this particular project, the Gibson project, where it is, while they are professing to alleviate traffic in their proposals, it will create some traffic delays in the particular neighborhood. And so we are looking to have a conversation and prioritize that so that community neighbors, et cetera, and have a better way to getting around not only Northwest, but just San Pedro in general. So that's where we are at. We closed the conversation with an opportunity to educate Northwest through one of our local, what I call local as a local meeting like this one, in a public setting, so that way we can create opportunities to educate the community on on programs and how to navigate. That is also they have received an approval and in moving forward with their project um, at this particular point. So that's my verbal update to the committee at this particular point. Thanks. I see your hand, Brooke. And Brooke, if you could, can you speak, Brooke?
Yeah, I think, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you. You said they received an approval to proceed. Um, who was that approval from?
I believe it was from the, and again, I apologize that I don't have the exact one in front of me. There's a lot of details and projects, but I believe that they have received an approval from the port.
Thank you.
Can you confirm that, Thomas?
What I've seen last, it was the port, and they were leaning towards planning, giving them approval, but I haven't seen that one come through. So, I don't think that our efforts have been successful, nor have Councilmember McCosker's to discourage this.
Jason, do you have audio?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I do. I think Thomas just answered. I was wondering what other further approvals are still coming for this beyond the port, but I think we understand it's just planning now.
Yes. Yes. I wanted to give an update on that. Um I was I feel like looking back, we obviously had a position on this and we could have gotten a little bit more out of it. But going forward, when we approach developers, I think that we have to have a more of a active role in that so that way our position is just so that the neighborhood gets what we desire at the end of the day. Um, but he did reach out to me yesterday morning, and that is Mr. Mike Tunney. And we were to have had a conversation yesterday at 2:30. We'll see where that reschedule lands, and I will definitely update the committee as it occurs. Okay.
So-
Any other further discussion on the John Gibson chassis project?
Is there any further actions we can take? Have we reached out to Wilmington Neighborhood Council on this to coordinate?
We have not reached out to the Wilmington Neighborhood Council yet on this particular project.
Is that something we want to do? Is it too late for that? Are we still able to add our voices together?
I would say, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities on other topics right now. If there's somebody that is interested in that particular project to jump in, that would be actually helpful. Naturally, the conversation will go further. I do have a unscheduled attempt to re-meet with Mr. Mike Tunney in that offer to educate the community is still on the table.
Educate sounds like a fait accompli versus discuss or,
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes, at this particular point. Yes. What's the phrase you use? Faded complete?
Fait accompli.
Oh. It's the first time I've heard that terminology.
There's cane number 2.
Thomas.
Yeah, I am now in my hotel room and more able to participate. Thank you for your patience. Apologize. We had a little weather in Minneapolis, so I was delayed, but listening to everything. And Jason, I agree with what the co-chair is saying. For that outreach, if you or somebody would volunteer to check, I do think Wilmington could be pretty influential, but I also understand in Diana's absence and just kind of getting on board now to help co-chair. I think both of us would appreciate as much help as possible in finding a partner, a non-co-chair partner on these. So if anybody wants to help with that, that would be a good action item to help us be better prepared more as a group, because I do think there's so much going on. This group should probably plan to meet every month in addition to our joint planning and land use meetings, even though it's extra work, because there's just a lot going on. I feel kind of overwhelmed by all the stuff Diana used to do and all the stuff when I see Elise, how stressed she is. So that's my plea for you to consider it. You can say no, Jason, or if somebody else is interested, to volunteer to help on that, because I'll be making the same asks as it comes to other things. And when we get to Phillips 66, Diana wisely created a group to help with that. So
Okay, well, if no one else steps forward, or if everyone else steps back, I will be standing forward. So
thank you.
I'll do a reach out. I'll send a message and see what they say.
Thank you, Jason. I was just taking some notes here.
Yep, and you're learning some French, Kane, fait accompli. So that's good. The professor in me loves sharing new words and phrases. That's cool.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Thomas, if you want to start back,
Yep.
I went to 2E. If you want to
Yep,
go
you
to
did.
2A.
I'm on the agenda, and thank you for covering. So I put everything on here just so we had the ability to speak, right? Per Brown Act and having people come up to me with questions about these. I don't have a huge update on any of them, but I think if any deserve the capital letter, it's the Phillips 66 because it's huge. Um, so there's a group of people who meet, right? It's not an official, Brown acted group, but I've been asked to check in with this group. So I will have a report. And the president of, oh, now I'm forgetting if it's Harbor City or Harbor Gateway, is taking an active role, but he didn't want to do much on this until after April. So, the main thing I just want to share with this group is that every neighborhood council leader I know doesn't understand why they're so averse to developing houses on the uncontaminated portion of land at the very minimum. And the latest update I have is they're still resistant. So if that's what you're going to recommend, know that I feel is one of the biggest priorities. But there are many other concerns too about from the feasibility of some of the shopping, plans. Like people want a Costco, and the former business baker me is like, well, I want to hear from Costco they're planning to come because I know a little bit about how Target and other big box make these decisions, and they don't just come because people say they want them, right? There's a very methodical process that requires, a lot of approval from their boards. So what we want and what we could tell the community we might get can be very different. And we're in very, I think, troubling economic times with fuel prices going up. We've seen most retail mall areas struggle, so that maybe some of the more affluent ones like Del Amo's not doing horribly, but other ones are doing quite poorly. Um, so those are a couple of the main issues that I'm trying to get information, and I feel we're having support from the council member's office, as well, trying to influence this, not just with the EAR. And when we get to that point, I'll be asking folks like Jason, who I've worked with before in that. I'll be asking Pat, even though he, just for his expertise to help wade through this, and anyone else who is interested, to make sure that Northwest has a clear position, and an early position on items so we can try to influence that. But don't want this meeting going forever. Is that enough for folks or any questions? I'll answer as best as I can, but probably more importantly, I'll take notes on what you want to make sure that as I'm interacting with their representatives, your voice is at least being communicated, right? At this point, I don't feel they're really listening because I just feel they're managing, but maybe that will change. And if you can do the hands, Kane, I can't see who's raising their.
Adrian has his hand up.
Okay. Oh, there I see it. Adrian.
Yes, very quickly. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. It's been a minute actually since I've been looped in on some of the Phillips 66, and I think the main one, yes, is the concern like you mentioned is housing. But it's my understanding that we submitted, I think it was a letter or within the EIR public comment, or no, I think it was the notice of preparation that it was asked that housing be an option. Well, am I
Right.
correct? Something around those lines?
Yes, we want housing to be an option, and I forget if you're part of that committee, Adrian, or the
I
group
think
that's
I
met.
joined like once.
I think I've seen you there, or seen your name on there. So that is the goal of this group, to have all of the neighborhood councils, right, from Harbor City, Harbor Gateway, Wilmington, Coastal, Central, and maybe you'll know what Central's done on that to make it very clear, because what Diana, with her years of experience, has said that it becomes very hard to change it if they don't get it in. And we've learned from the city planning department, they're very clear the city cannot require that. All we could do is put public pressure to encourage them to do that. So they couldn't say, well, hey, we have to do the EIR all over again for housing, right? If that wasn't that. So that's a little bit more for people who are wondering, because I feel that the group has got a lot more senior folks than I pushing this, and I'm grateful for I think, Coastal probably in particular. I think people like Robin, um, Doug, those voices are quite articulate. Only thing I think I contributed to one of the meetings was just how I can't explain to the stakeholders who come to me how if they want kids to play soccer on the grass that's contaminated, oh, that's not a greater risk and liability than a house that's properly built with venting and raised off the area. Um, So, no answer to that, but I think that's a pretty good basic science common sense question, suggesting their position makes very little sense. I actually want to try to figure out if we can get to the Oklahoma City, owners to even point out the value if they're just worried about the money, right? I think it's much more valuable to turn into housing than to use that spot for a park when we've got the, other space in the area, the Department of Defense it has put out its notice of its plan to change with that. So,
Yeah,
but thank you for bringing that up.
yeah, no, and I do agree. I mean, like for example, like I think even think of like if you put a Costco there, think of the workers,
Yep.
right? Who are gonna have to, and even then you still have that 5 point intersection next to a park.
Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't put my kid there playing around in a 5 point intersection, but I think with the back to the issue of housing, if they were to put, we're not doing housing, but we'll consider the option later down the road, if they consider the option, would that mean they'd have to redo the EIR?
That's what we understand, right? Which would make it harder for a developer. Like I try to figure out if I were just greedy trying to make money, right? Are we
Even if it
aligned with that?
says, even if it says with an option?
Well, with the option, as long as they're doing the analysis to consider that option, then they'll have done the ER for that as an option, right? But if I were then to buy it and want to change it, I might say no if it's $2 million to redo it, right? So if you do it up front, we save time and we give the option, and there's not that much more cost to get a good picture. And I think from a fiduciary responsibility for those who own that property, you want to know what the best use is, right? Even if you don't always want to, because I don't teach my students as a business professor, just to on the record here. I don't say be evil and make the most money, but I do teach them you do need to realize you'll deal with folks who it's all about the profit, right? They don't care about your community because they don't live in your community. But to
Yeah.
me, you should at least know what the options are because the answer might be, wow, it's a win-win. You make more money, you make the community happy. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But if we hold off, then it could cost whatever that amount is, right? If you got to redo it, and we know nothing ever goes down in price, right? I expect wages in 2 years will be more than they are today. So that report might be 10, 15% more.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Let me look at the.
The-
Otherwise, I'll move on to Cabrillo Beach update. In this group, I'll try to keep it short. If you've talked to Lori Jacobs or if you've been in a room with Lori Jacobs, you've heard her talk about how, and this is a theme, you know, with the port. A lot of people are disappointed in how it was communicated, how the scouting organization was treated with the short notice, how the community, this is my concern. I think the community finding out and one thing that's come out in some of these meetings is that accommodation is the language they're using, and we're finding out for the Holy Trinity swim team and the Mary Star swim team, accommodation means they're being told to go to Carson to swim in that pool, which is totally a different sense. I thought there was a San Pedro option. Having had three kids go through swimming through Holy Trinity and then San Pedro or Long Beach schools, I know that when Peck Park closed, the number of people who followed my kids to Wilmington was probably 20%. And I feel that really disadvantaged lower income and mostly, students of color because of it being, that far. Carson's further than that, right? And so, a lot of concern about really trying to ask Augie and others, what do these things mean? What's the implication? If you haven't checked the P2P, is it like Pathways to Progress website? I'm hoping we'll get I'd actually like to invite somebody from that group to speak to us at one of our next meetings, the next two meetings. Give that person some time to say what they're doing and start showing how they're reaching out to the community because that is the commitment. So I don't like what happened in the past, but I want to focus on the future. Now that there is a new group, let's find out what we can do between now and the Olympics, and then let's maybe try to influence what happens to that property after the Olympics. Somebody have a question, comment? I don't know if Augie's on here and wanted to comment. No.
No, I don't see
Okay.
anybody with their
I'd
hands up.
heard a noise, so I thought somebody might have
That was
something.
a sneeze for me.
Okay. Oh, well, then bless you. This is a heated one, so I actually am used to people interjecting. It gets
Yeah,
passionate.
as a community member, I not excited about their response and their communication style from the port, especially on this particular issue as it affects youth and youth in our community. And so I think that they are going to have to communicate better, more so straight talk, at the end of the day. Things are happening very fast. The Pathways to Podium is an organization that was non-existent up until weeks ago. And, so there's obviously questions around that, but to your point, Thomas, in looking forward, I believe we should urgently request an audience or some type of panel, not, and again, not panel, that language may not be appropriate, but just a welcome. How can we welcome this particular entity into the community so that way we can have a real dialogue and 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 improve the community before, during, and after the Olympics.
Yeah. So is anybody in this committee opposed to an invitation to attend whichever the next three meetings work for them? Because I think that would be enough to call a meeting. But if somebody doesn't want to, and then of course, as a co-chair, I'll try to seek a conversation there. But I really want to open it up to the collective wisdom of this whole group. And I think they will do themselves a service by speaking to more people, right? Showing they're willing to come in a group like this.
I'll volunteer. I'll volunteer. I would definitely like that.
Okay.
Doesn't look like we got a second or another hand, Mr. Thomas.
Well,
But
you could be seconding my motion. I could make it. You could second and then ask if anybody is against. I don't know if we need to vote on just, this isn't a formal action we're speaking on behalf, but I just wanted to kind of, in my other roles, we just call it kind of the will of the body. Are we okay for this and setting our next agenda?
I would never oppose more outreach from whatever party's concerned.
Okay.
all right.
And I do agree with that. I think that, yeah, having more communication, the little brief presentation they gave before was sort of um, not satisfying as far as, well, this is what's happening.
But
So yes, inviting them to address this again would be a good idea.
That's been a port's communication style for a very long time.
Yep.
I have
If I
other
could,
work that I don't want to have recorded.
No, I know.
That-
I want to be careful.
how something that's kind of come up for me is what kind of leverage can we influence or use in these types of conversations? Obviously, the port is an amazing partner and a big partner in the harbor area, but ultimately, organizations and the like, what can we do differently in 2026 where we have urgent needs and requests for informations or requests for proposals? What are some of the ways that, as a body or group, that we could start to put in play? Because asking people to make a presentation, we don't know what they're going to present, or to what degree. We want it to be something meaningful to the community.
I think we should maybe invite, different harbor commissioners to these meetings too, like, how public officials come. I think that's appropriate for Northwest. So we could put that on our list of things to act and, every other meeting we could try to get, different ones to not just always the same one, but that's a group that the port has to listen to. Because I really do think you have to speak to those who have more direct power than we do. We could do letters and we could do EARs, and we will. But I'd like to have some more dialogue and set that expectation of more public accountability. That's a proposal. It's something we can just kind of do, right? We can reach out to them and they could come, but we could accommodate. And one thing I wanted to share, I know Diana's a little frustrated that Mike didn't show up at the joint planning and last use meeting, but that's on a Wednesday when he's never available. But we meet at a different time. right? So that might be another thing, and then you can decide, do you want to go to 3 or 4 of these, or go to one, or send somebody else? But if it's of interest to us, I think the port on a more regular basis, quarterly, maybe should just say, hey, let's get the update, let's talk, and let's have them listen to the things we're saying. So it's not just, Nicholas, it's Norman, Herring, this is what the group of and the people in the audience, and I think it'll actually draw more people to these meetings. When you feel you have a reasonable chance of being heard and those ideas turning into action, it's going to strengthen this whole neighborhood council system, versus 5 people. And I wanted to thank everybody who is here tonight. This is a good group, right? I've been in committees, Jason CMA committees, where we couldn't get quorum. It's like Pat, Jason, and I looking at each other.
The old core committee days, yeah.
So this is good, and that might be different. It can be easy to ignore 3 people, right? You can write them off as the grumpy people, or you're probably like the train guy, Jason, or the bike guy, or the roundabout guy, and I don't know what kind of guy I am. I'm just saying things I've heard, but that's important, right?
Put me down also as the roundabout guy.
Yeah, and just so you know, to get here, I had to use a roundabout, right? So Wisconsin, Minnesota are adopting your ideas in their cities. So
Oh yeah, I've seen them. I've seen them all over. I was back in Wisconsin over Christmas.
yeah, so the other city planners are embracing these good ideas. Any other ideas though? Again, we're giving ideas you can validate, but other ideas, and to Kane's question.
Well, I think that, not to state the obvious here, but the purpose of this committee is to listen to these presentations and then make a recommendation, either for or against, or supporting or not supporting, and then pass that up to the neighborhood council, who then either adopts that position and
Yep.
then passes it on to the councilman's office. And so, I mean, that's the way that's our lever, that's our influence. And so having these people come in and do a presentation to us, so then we can, as a committee, decide whether we're for or against or ambivalent, is sort of the major role of us here. And Thomas, as you said, if they want to come to the joint meeting and address all 3 at once, that's more efficient for them. But if that doesn't work, well, then they can come talk to us individually, or whoever invites them to the uh, to the committee meeting. I mean, we're Northwest, and so we're providing recommendations for the neighborhood council to either accept or ignore. And it's really nice if all 3 San Pedro or add in Wilmington and Harbor City. I mean, if we could get a more unified voice reporting, giving feedback to our neighborhood council, which then passes it on to the councilman, that just strengthens it. But we have to keep in mind that our purpose of listening to these presentations is to take a position and then pass that recommendation on to the neighborhood council that doesn't have time to listen to all of these presentations.
Well said, Brooke. In that, I think we can really get a lot done with the stating our position early in the conversation, when that way, yeah, I believe that we can really get some movement there, and start the conversation in a healthy way. That requires not only just verbal, but also the the footwork to making that happen, whether it be to Thomas's point, inviting other people, strategic people to, or inviting, I don't want to say strategic, everybody's important, but knowing key people will draw, a certain type of presentation to it, but also community impact statements and the transparency that whatever comes to the Northwest planning desk, if you will, that it's going to move. And that's where I think we've had some leadership transition. There's a lot of heavy things on the plate. So go ahead, Adrian.
Oh, yeah, thank you. What I will say is I do like everything that's here. I will say, and one thing that I've become very frustrated with the port is that yes, we can ask them to come, but I do feel, and I think being on other neighborhood councils, they come when they want to come. And I think that is something, like for example, with, Augie. Augie's a community relations guy, and he shows up in a blue moon, and he shows up when, it's important to the port to share something. So I think, actions to consider is, writing CISs and writing letters and taking them to the Board of Harbor Commission and showing up to the Board of Harbor Commission and doing, I know, depending if it's on the agenda or not, we get our 5 minutes and speaking there and document these things and, show proof that it's like, hey, and if they're not following up, which again, I doubt that's because again, I do believe, and it's my belief that they do it when they want to do it, have it documented saying that we've written these letters, we have these concerns, and also, do gather community members and just stack up stuff to show that they're here are the concerns. So that's my say.
Yeah, yeah, I want to move there, right? And want to build a good relationship, want to build a better relationship with Augie, want to lean in, but it requires respect, respect's a two-way street.
Mhm. Also, there's also a harbor area planning committee, correct?
The commission, yes, that's an area planning commission.
Yeah.
But that might soon be dissolved with the Charter Reform Commission recommendations.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
But other than
And
that,
can I?
yeah, Lee would be a good person. I think from the port, Lee's a very good asset. Um, Yolanda Del Torre is another one from Wilmington.
Mhm.
So
Lewis slash Phyllis.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm just a guest listening in, but I would like to say that, I worked for the city of Long Beach for 18 years and in neighborhood development and in business development. And I know the thing about getting citizens involved. My thing with the neighborhood councils, and I'm in the 18th below Leland, I think, neighborhood council. But I don't see any fire in the neighborhood councils. I know the importance of citizen participation. Um, but how do you get citizens involved? Because the more voices you got, the better you listen to. I mean, and the port, I don't mind going on record and saying the port does as little as possible. They do what they have to do to get by. And they're not going to break any barriers trying to get information to people or trying to accommodate, I guess I should say. But is there a way that the whole council system can can fire up the community? Because I'm looking at your agenda, and I'm sure there are other committees. This is meaty stuff, and it's not getting out to the community that you got a stake in this. I own property in San Pedro. My neighbors own property in San Pedro. This is meaty stuff. We need to know this, and we need to have our voices heard. And there are people out there, I think, that would if they knew what was going on. So the councils themselves, and I know there are three or four, a coalition of councils, even though you all have different areas, is going to be a hell of a lot stronger than each individual council kind of doing its own thing. And I know there are issues related to specific areas of San Pedro, but there are also issues that cover all of San Pedro and actually all of the harbor area. So I don't know what the answer to in terms of how to get, there are various ways to kind of get people involved. Sometimes you got to go with gimmicks. Sometimes you got to go, but people, they go to work every day. They come home. They got kids. They got other obligations. This is very low on their list of priorities, but somehow the council's got to move it up.
Well,
And
that
I'm
please
sorry.
finish. No, please finish. You just got me excited. Please
No,
finish.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Thank you.
No, you got me really excited. I actually just put in a proposal for $100,000 grant to the Haynes Foundation to figure out how to get more participation in neighborhood councils, and will want to interview if I get that funding. But even if I don't, I love what you're saying. And that's the spirit in which, if you're interested as a citizen in any of these things, the agenda, why I wanted more rather than less, even if we didn't have a presentation, because we're all volunteers, right? And we only have so much time, even the leaders. And then if too much is on any of the leaders, then I've seen people leave the committees, right? And you get left with three people or two people. So if any of these things, have you interested, I wish the parents of all the people who lost their ability to swim in San Pedro, if they organize and put some pressure, the port might listen to 80 angry parents. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's going
Mm-hmm.
to have more say than me, whose kids have gone. Well, it doesn't affect you. Yeah, but I'm trying to represent all that it affects, right? I saw
Yes.
what it meant. So if there's any of these things, please give us your name, contact, or take ours and let us know offline. I'm T like Thomas Norman, Norman at CSU for Cal State University, DH like Dominguez Hills .edu. You got
Oh,
to get the edu, not com, because
okay.
university. But reach out because that's why I would like to have a group of two or three people looking at whatever the passionate things are and give you a little homework. So when we come back,
Mm-hmm.
and then if you want to organize, I agree. I would love to see these things fiery. Adrian probably knows I love Peck Park when the students are there and it's full, but I would like to have students going, young people like Adrian showing up when they don't get extra credit, right? It's one thing to come because you're part of your class, but you could have so much say in your community, right? And I have more trust in the younger people who are less jaded
Yes.
or less spot out sometimes than I do the people I think that are managing me or selling me. So just thank you for saying that, and hopefully you'll find me to be an ally to support your idea.
Okay.
Excellent. Let's move on
To Olympics.
to the Olympics.
Yeah. So I don't have anything new from the council member's office that we know. We've probably have heard the excitement about hosting the Croatian group, and that we got the sailing event, and that was a big lift. I'm really proud of Councilmember McCosker for that. I did want to share something I know from another role I'm on. I'm on Dominguez Hills is Toro Auxiliary. That's part of one of our foundation boards. And I learned something interesting that may help us when we learn more about San Pedro. I learned that I work for the state of California, so this is state property, Dominguez Hills, and somebody, they couldn't tell me who, signed an agreement to basically take all of our parking spaces for that summer, even the ones that I and students have paid for, and we're going to have to bus on to campus because the Olympic agreements or NDAs, you can hardly see anything, but the president, interim president found out, oh my gosh, it's going to be a nightmare. I also said, what will we get in exchange for giving up all of our parking facilities to park all the buses? They're also going to build a bus maintenance facility, which kind of relates to a project we have here on our campus, which I didn't know about before that meeting. So they're going to do a lot of things. And when they're gone, we don't need a bus maintenance facility because we have zero buses. So I don't know if they're going to take it down. And the president said she didn't know if we would actually make money or the privilege of hosting the 5 events we have and being the bus headquarters might actually cost us money that I don't think I know our campus doesn't have because we're several million in the red looking to lay off some of my colleagues. So I just wanted to share that as a perspective why with this, again, the more of us there are, I want to have this. So if any of you know things that affect San Pedro or the city more directly, that's my lived experience of an unpleasant surprise. And we had the shock last week, I think, for many of us. I didn't get even in the draw. My wife did on Friday. And at that point, to go to the opening ceremonies, the cheapest ticket was 2,500, right?
What?
There were no $28 tickets that we could find in LA. I think maybe in Oklahoma City, but that's not our neighborhood. So the rollout of that, we're starting to read in the LA Times. LAist was not what was expected. My one of my three children also got invited on Monday, And I did borrow him probably a couple $1,000 because he wants to go. It's going to be a once in a lifetime thing. But he's looking at like judo, badminton, shotgun. I didn't even know shotgun was a sport. It's in shooting. All at a couple hundred a ticket, right? With his 12 tickets. So, I guess I also wanted to use this opportunity to say, not super impressed as a host that we will be paying a price for the Olympics. Don't feel like it was great, but the thing I know financially from being on the budget, I'm a budget advocate through this as well, and I'm on their Olympic subcommittee. The good news, I guess, the high ticket prices is the city is on the hook, a lot like this Dominguez Hills agreement, that if they don't sell all the tickets at this price, the city will actually have to reimburse the Olympic Committee for the amount we're expecting from ticket sales, which is tied for the second biggest source of revenue to this kind of secret committee that has all these NDAs. And they're like the port times 10 in terms of they'll tell you what they
Ooh.
want to tell you when they want to tell you, and we should be thanking them for the wonderful opportunity for them to take over our city. So like, that's just opening up. And does anybody else know anything else? And I do think this will become more of an issue as I expect there'll be some frustration. And for people who live through 84, what I've heard about policing and what I try to do on the budget side, right, is make sure that as police resources go to protect the games, that our communities don't suffer from too little fire protection, police protection, or other services. Which even though the 84 games were considered successful and did turn a profit, I didn't live here at the time, but I understand that there were costs borne by Angelenos, right? And we want to try to be as up on this as possible. And this is one where we, in addition to our council member, I think we need to let the mayor know as well, because she and then the Olympic Committee director, right, have a lot more say. Well, I just think that's another route we can try to influence things we're unhappy about.
Brooke?
Well, in the paper today, there was some vague promise that there will be more $28 tickets released at some day in the future somewhere. But
Okay.
yes, we too were not in the draw, but we have a friend that was, and they said, "Oh, you can buy some tickets with us." And I looked at the prices and thought, "Well, we're going to be watching this on TV."
And hopefully it's not pay-per-view, $100.
Yes.
I'm gonna call for the question or call. Do
Yeah.
we want to take an action on this to make sure that the neighborhood council, our neighborhood council, is aware of this? And do we want to write a CIS or a letter to the mayor?
I don't have anything actionable, yet. I wanted to discuss this, but again, this is one where I thought I might get a few people to want to join a subcommittee like we have with the budget advocates, that we could think about this and try to formulate it. Um, other than if I were to work on something now, it might just be great disappointment with with the contract. But I think I think that's already been done. And there's nothing, as I understand, there's nothing that could be done. Like I know a group of no Olympics type folks, and when we analyze what that would mean, the city then has to pay all these damages. So I don't know. I'm not quite ready to lead because I don't know what the ask is. But if we were to get to a situation where they're going to take over some of our existing space, like at Dominguez Hills, then I would want us to stop that, right? If they, and it's kind of happened with the Cabrillo Beach thing, but that there the port was a willing participant, right? And not much we could do. But if there's anything else, and I want to find out, I want to share this with Tim McCosker and the staff to just see if in the spirit of hosting here's where I feel it could happen. In the spirit of hosting all the different countries and giving them space, I want to be very careful about the city committing things that we might want to use. If it's going to be so prohibitive. One other thing I'll share about Dominguez Hills I've learned, we've already had to spend a day with helicopter stuff landing for security. So you might think, oh, it's not going to do anything, but that might not be true. It might mean you can't use facilities. And Jason, you might know this, like I have friends that are windsurfers. They're really concerned about the inability to do things they've been doing because of safety, security concerns. So I want us to keep our finger on the pulse of that. But it could even be, parks being shut down while they do their special training, in the event of a terrorist attack. Because we've already done 2 events on our campus, and we're pretty far from the Olympics with actual helicopters landing and simulated gunshots. Those types of things can be pretty unnerving for communities.
Mm. Thank we also have Sam who has his hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say really briefly, I think it would be good to track this and, track what the impacts are going to be on San Pedro and see if we could get sort of, I don't know if it's on the neighborhood council website or maybe just somewhere where we could get the information out to the community about what the impacts are locally. I was in the ticket draw, just my experience with the ticket draw, and I was trying to get tickets for any of the events in San Pedro, and I couldn't. Like I don't know if it's that they just haven't identified the ticketing yet for the sailing events, or if they're all out or whatever. But I couldn't even get a San Pedro event ticket. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my son didn't get, my wife got Thursday, my son got Monday. So um, I think she might have saw some sailing. Do you know what day you got? Were you day one, day two, or three?
No, I was the last day, so I think was that Monday. I think was the
I
last
think
day.
she had sailing, but we looked at the price and it's just expensive for four tickets when they're like $400, $500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before you go, Brooke, I wanted to say, Thomas, that I'm interested in the business opportunities that may arise outside of the or adjacent to the entertainment and being an Angelino. But this is still an opportunity, and again, there's also FIFA as well, but ultimately the Olympics is the big it's the big wallop. And so, if there is, if, and again, this may not be out. I am the business rep for Northwest, but we do not have an active conversation around business tracking, if not business readiness in this area. And so, if I'm sure I had a comment with Elise at the Chamber of Commerce, um, and and again, I don't know what I should say officially, but there's room for opportunities and preparedness for this particular area outside of the Croatia and the Cabrillo sailing water taxi conversation. Is there anybody that's interested in the business side of the Olympics?
And Brooke has a hand up. I don't know if it's on that or something else.
No, I wasn't volunteering about the business part. But what I was interested in, Thomas, you were saying that you didn't find out about the impacts that it was going to have on CSU Dominguez Hills until you went to another meeting.
Yep.
And so I'm made me all of a sudden ask, well, I haven't heard any details on what impacts that this will have to San Pedro and and uh, like having a bus maintenance garage built. And so how does that impact, how will these events or what's foreseen impact the land use here? And is this something that we need to be involved in? Or I guess the even more basic question is what is going on and should we be involved in it? And how do we find that out? Do you know?
And no, I don't know, but let's all work on that and report back because here's what I'm trying to extrapolate from what I learned about Dominguez Hills and Carson. If it's a car-free Olympics, that means buses are taking everybody to our events. And what will that mean for our traffic? Will there be, to get that many buses there, will they shut down roads? Because if you've ever gone to, even just NFL things at SoFi, right, the way they manage traffic like that, that's a big period of disruption for people in that area. So kind of the lesson you're picking up that I want to share with the Dominguez Hills is let's start asking, let's just start hypothesizing because I a week before I blew off a faculty who had heard a rumor he wouldn't be able to park there saying, no, they haven't said that. Of course, we pay for our parking passes. How could they take that away from us? Only to find out, oh my gosh, you do have a concern. I'm glad I don't have a lab or something that I've got to go to every day to like take care of plants or animals. Like a business, I don't really need to go there. So I probably will just teach online. But that's not true for everyone. And not every student wants to, have an online experience when you pay for the full thing. So that that's where I wanted to get people's creative juices, flowing, who know that area. What is that going to mean? Is that area off limits for X period of time? How do you get that many buses in and out? And where do those buses park?
I might suggest that the port may propose a similar method that they did for events at the future auditorium or out there and just West Harbor traffic in general, that their plan was to just close down a lane on Harbor and make those dedicated bus lanes. And everyone else just have to suck it.
That's what I think.
We fought against this when they took out the red car, when we were trying to get a dedicated right of way, some form of transit there, and they're just like, no, we have a plan. They have no plan.
And what if they would have just had, the public, the subway or whatever, go all the way to San Pedro? I wouldn't have this issue if they would have kept the red car. I mean, these comments that we have make sense.
Okay.
Well, we can get into that some other time. I have so much material.
No, I know. We got to keep on schedule. So does that move us into West Harbor, Co-Chair?
Yes, please.
So West Harbor, the only new news I have, we've talked about it a lot, is I have heard that they've decided to go with artificial turf, which, people were upset when they heard it at the meeting where I heard it. So that's the only kind of new thing for this group. Um, I don't want to give a long update because I think we probably covered this a lot. If people have questions, I can give more more background, but just wanted to get reaction from this group because my first committee was the environmental committee where we talked about that and discouraged it. But the Johnsons have shown me, and actually will give. It seems like pretty good scientific research showing that their astroturf, it may be just less impactful than grass in terms of the runoff of fertilizer and things, but they've also been honest saying with the chair setup that it'll be muddy and not good for guests. So I can see both sides of that, and all I can report is that I've heard the decision has been to go with AstroTurf and not natural gas for the amphitheater portion of that West Harbor project. Otherwise, you probably see the list of companies in there. You may have been to the fish market. Community members have shared with me it's pretty inexpensive. It seems like we're gentrifying San Pedro, and the restaurants coming in are mostly out of town, bigger name restaurants. But the Johnsons would say there it wasn't maybe everybody had an opportunity to try to get in the space, but maybe some of the local providers weren't as able as others. So kind of a nutshell, some of what to know about West Harbor. And we've done lots of letters and actions on that. So I don't have any CAS in mind, but did want to open it up to the public to share your thoughts.
Well, that is sort of the nature of gentrification, right? Anyone can go in there and if you can afford it, buy a place. I mean, that that is the definition of gentrification.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Thomas, for those updates, and thank you, everybody, for the discussion that we've had. I know it's been a while, and we're having some really good conversation and moving towards action. I'd like to move to the agenda through the agenda to item number 3A, which is the San Pedro zoning hearing letter. And just to give everyone a little bit of background, um, the story map, not historic, but the story map of San Pedro and coming out of the LA City Planning Office. They have been amazing, or they've been very good, I should say, because I was not leading this in this long educational opportunity where, um, and again, Diana, this is where Diana would tell us about how the layers of overlay of San Pedro, whether it be historical or environmental, there are changes that are happening as we speak, and there has been presentations at the joint planning land use meetings, but there's an opportunity to continue the work that the Naves have started with a letter of support to the area planning committee. Okay. And what I'll do is I have a letter that I broached with the joint at the joint committee meeting, but I naturally wanted to bring it back to our local Northwest committee meeting so that way we can move it forward officially to our general meeting that's happening next week. So I do apologize that you did not have it in advance, but if you would allow me to read it, it should give you some context there. So please let me know if you can see the document here. Starts with honorable commissioners.
Yes, I'm seeing it.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, and it reads, on the behalf of the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Councils, Northwest San Pedro North, or the acronym Planning, Land Use, and Port Committee, we are writing to express our support for the San Pedro zoning update as as it comes before the Area Planning Commission. The PLUP committee has engaged with the city planning staff and participated in discussions regarding the proposed zoning framework. We appreciate the department's commitment to transparency, accessibility, and meaningful community engagement throughout this process. We would like to specifically acknowledge the inclusion of a historical preservation component within the zoning update. This element reflects community dialogue and input and is an important step towards maintaining the unique character and identity of San Pedro while planning for the future. The committee recognizes the importance of the zoning updates as a long-term planning tool that will guide land use, development patterns, and community outcomes for years to come. We support the effort to balance economic development, housing opportunities, and some neighborhood character in a way that reflects both current needs and future vision. While additional details and refinements may continue to be discussed at the committee and board level, we believe the current direction of the San Pedro zoning update represents a positive and forward-looking framework for the community. We respectfully request that the Area Planning Commission consider this letter as an expression of support from our committee, and a reflection of our ongoing commitment to participate in the planning process. We look forward to continued engagement with this item progresses and appreciate your consideration. Sincerely, to would be signed the president of the Northwest Neighborhood Council president. And so I would like to move that we move this letter to be approved by the general board on Monday at the general council meeting.
So we'd recommend it. So could you keep it up so people could look at it if they have amendments, but I will second that and wait for people to comment on anything.
Well, I mean, what gave the movement for this ringing support of the new zoning? Because I mean, the last I saw it, there was quite a bit of controversy. So I mean, for me to say, "Hey, this letter's great," I don't know.
Yeah, duly noted, Jason. There was a lot of conversation, and there was active conversation in the joint meetings. But what I did also observe is that there was not a lot of follow through on these particular areas. There was an attempt to make um, that we broke it up by sections. Some were business story map, comments that were requested or solicited for, obviously historic, in other areas that span the planning landscape or purview, if you will. But ultimately, no one came back with a report. And they're in looking to keep or to build a relationship with the planning committee, commission. Um, Diana and I, or if more so I don't want to speak for her. There was a lot of great work that was put in advance around the historical component in the plan. And so, long story, Jason, the work that Diana had put in um, prior to me coming or myself leading the joint committee, we wanted to make sure that that portion of it was, and it was also implemented in the plan. So an acknowledgement, but you have a great question. Great point.
It's a good question, and maybe Adrian, if you've been following the charter reform, is there any reason to give a positive letter supporting this? Because um, it would encourage, as they reform the charter, to keep things right rather than losing any say. Looking at it from that lens, because I wasn't part of this. I wanted to second it to get it discussed. That's why I wanted to make sure we give everybody enough time to meaningfully discuss this. I don't want to rush it through. If we need to table it, we need to table it. Is there any, so two things, anybody with charter or, knowledge that thinks that there's a benefit of positively supporting this to continue to have some influence in the future? And then maybe for the author of it, is there an urgency to get it done now? Kane, that feeds into that?
What I would say, I would recommend going through with this. From a charter reform commission. I mean, the commission won't like the recommendations from the commission, if approved by, I mean, there's 64 of them. If those recommendations pass city council, they'll go on the November ballot, so that'll be kind of far from now. But I would recommend going through this. I mean, again, charter stuff won't go to the voters until November. So
And are any of the changes, would they affect our ability to influence that department in City Hall? I don't know what that will. I
the
don't know.
only change would, I would say that it would eliminate the area planning commission.
Okay.
And it would replace it with what would be called a neighborhood appeals board, which would basically do the similar. I don't know the actual details, but it'd be sort of similar. But they'll take on other duties as well.
Okay.
So an appeals board again sounds like something after the fact versus a planning commission is by the name planning before the fact.
Correct, yes.
So I don't like that.
Yeah, that was one of the recommendations uh, that came out of the commission.
I don't know. I don't feel I know enough about it, and what little I know hasn't made me happier, so I'm not going to support this letter.
All right. As far as timing, to your question or inquiry, Dr. Norman, uh, it is under review, and it is approaching the Area Planning Commission. Um, but there's no urgency per se. This is a letter of support versus a position on one of the areas, historical preservation versus something that might be more meatier or yeah, might be more meatier. So um, thank you for your comments, Jason. Thank you, Adrian.
I mean, you guys can still vote on it. I mean, if you all want it,
Yep.
just pass my one vote. So.
But no, but I'd like to get a sense of how others feel. I share some of Jason's concerns, and I'll speak broadly in favor of the idea, but maybe even a potential amendment is to, you know, move the support for the zoning update as a blanket support and take the third paragraph and say, support for the historical preservation component of the San Pedro zoning update. But I don't know that's where if there's wide support, take the vote. It could go through as planned. You and Diane have thought a lot about this. I'm not wholeheartedly opposed, but I do think my personal feelings are excited about the historical preservation component. That's kind of my main thing, right? With hearing stakeholders have some disappointment, but I don't want to spend this evening, rejiggering it. So maybe you want to call the vote, or is there anybody else who wants to speak in favor? That's one thing we don't do here. We do in other things where lots of people speak for, in favor or against. So we've got a Jason against. And then after we've heard from two from each side, then we vote. So anybody else want to speak against or in favor of this?
I'm going to claim ignorance. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the zoning and details of changing in the zoning things. Um, and I was looking in my notes and I don't show it, but Kane, you mentioned that there were some people that were given an assignment of or volunteered to look at various components of the zoning thing.
Yes.
Have we heard back from them? And does this letter, which is very positive, is this reflecting the feedback we got from those individuals?
No, it is not. This is the softest, if you will, the softest aspect of this story map overlay is the historical component. But business development, economic development, transportation, those are some of the other topics that we did not. Hillside was an issue, a topic, a component, and so there was some solid things, but ultimately we did not get a report back.
Is that something we should still wait to get a report back in, or do we say that no news is good
Maybe,
news?
I mean, from what I'm hearing you say, maybe what would be in order? Would you want to move to table it until we get more information?
To table for it to evaporate. I don't think that there is going to be any more um, conversation about it. This is one of Diana's last efforts in in her involvement with the committee. And so it'll probably die. I don't know if you're frozen, Thomas, or
No, no, I'm just trying not to speak too much and to Lee, like as a chair, to
yeah.
to see if there's anyone else who wants to speak in favor. And if not, then I just call a question and I think we should probably just move on to a vote.
Okay.
Well, I would accept your friendly amendment around the historical subsection.
Could I ask a question about the historical? So when I'm reading this letter, it says we specifically acknowledge the inclusion of the historical preservation component. So is that saying we appreciate that they've included historical preservation?
Yes, Diana in the committee at the time had put a lot of input on the historical component, and that was, according to Diana, that was implemented in the conversation that's probably been going on for maybe 2 years. And so it's one of the conversations with planning. Also to um, this soft letter of support, um, creates an opportunity for us to have a relationship directly with uh, the planning department as well. So,
So in the spirit of what Jason said, and to maybe go through, my amendment would be after the word "are" in the first paragraph before support, are modest support to somewhat, limit it.
mhm.
And then I would just replace the second paragraph with the third paragraph, going into, that then kind of gives the reason for the support. So the we would like to specifically acknowledge, move that, and then later on talk about how they engage with that. Because I do want to encourage them to keep working with us. But I'd like to know our support is primarily about the inclusion of the historic preservation component and not the overall changes they made.
Understood.
And I don't know
Um,
if modest is the right thing, that somebody could do an amendment to the amendment to soften that language a little bit more than just support. And I'm okay if we just say we support it. I guess we're not saying we strongly support or greatly endorse. Maybe support's as weak as we can go, but
Appreciation.
Well, I think that Thomas putting in modest there really um, downplays our support. That really
it
cuts
does.
the legs out of it.
It
And
does.
maybe that's not quite what you wanted to do. And the I would suggest it in the third paragraph talking about the historic uh, preservation that acknowledge is kind of a neutral word, and if our purpose is to say we appreciate the inclusion of a historic preservation, that we support that or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that,
Yeah,
that would be,
maybe
I think that would
amplify
be a
that.
little more positive than just saying acknowledge.
Yeah. We can even say greatly appreciate. And if we moved it right after the support, get rid of the modest, I think we're maybe getting closer to it. But if Jason's got a softer word than support that doesn't sound as passive aggressive as modest.
Yeah.
It,
You know,
could I ask a question to the group? I know I was at the joint committees where the planning department came and they presented the story map, and as an architect I deal with zoning all the time. I mean, what they were presenting seemed fine to me. I didn't feel like I had major um any problems with what they presented. Is it seems like our committee is kind of hesitant to support it. Is there anything specifically that people are um, upset about or hesitant about to support in the zoning, or is it's just kind of that there's just a lack of further understanding with the
Yeah.
zoning update?
I think understanding is part of it because there was several people had volunteered to go off and look at various different sections and come back with reports. And I mean, I'm hearing no one returned with the information. So all the questions we initially had, which I can't remember, I know the hillside was one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Up zone on the hillside on Western facing the wrong way. It would have been terrible. But some other things were in there that were concerns. I know we wanted to have greater emphasis on corridors rather than just, penny packet up zone around. But I don't remember seeing an analysis of how that was changed from their initial proposal to the latest one, which I thought
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're going to look at. So for me, I don't necessarily think there's bad stuff in it. I just don't know what's in it. So for me to say I enthusiastically support it would be a lie because I don't have any information.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally
Yeah,
fair.
I just
I
told
think
my,
that make I think that makes sense. I was just trying to get an understanding for the group of what the reasons were.
Does the group think moving 3 and 4 kind of stresses what we do support about it? And I'm okay to get rid of modest. So where the PLUP committee has moved the PLUP committee one below the we would like specifically appreciate. So that whole paragraph came from we to growth, cut that and place it after planning commission.
we could just put something about we we appreciate the inclusion of historical and look forward to working with you on further things and blah blah blah. Right? Just get rid of endorsing the whole plan because I don't know if we do. And maybe
Yeah.
someone else does. I can abstain, whatever. I just don't know.
Okay. So thank you. I really appreciate this again. Um, if we could just slow down on what we want to cut and edit at this particular point. So for the
Let me see what it looks like. So leave that where it is, okay? And then if you would instead go to the word the and highlight the plup all the way to the period in that paragraph. So that whole paragraph, cut, and then paste it below future growth. So after the period future growth, paste it there. Now Jason's suggestion's even stronger. So make it its own paragraph. So put a return there. And we can get rid of modest. Nobody really liked modest. Um, but then the question is, and this is what I wanted to hear from everybody. It sounds like one person was saying they're in favor of it, with expertise, and they kind of support it based on what they know. And that's what I'm looking for because this is not an area of expertise of mine. I do have concerns more procedurally. If people were going to get back to people like Jason who had good questions, they didn't. Um, to me, that's more of a procedural issue I have, but I don't know that, which side to pick, in terms of the support. So I kind of feel supportive into, what Adrian shared too. I mean, in general, I don't want to lose any ability to influence this, so I kind of want to partner with them well. But I think the key choice, for Jason to advocate for would be if we're going to delete the support for the San Pedro zoning update and instead put the historical preservation, we should discuss that. Or maybe this is my proposal to at least try to get to more of what we seem to be in agreement on.
I guess I agree with Jason that if we're asking for expert opinions and we haven't gotten their expert opinion, we need to circle back to them and see before we send this letter out. On another thing that just wordsmithing here on the second paragraph, instead of saying we would like to specifically appreciate, it should just say we specifically appreciate the inclusion.
Okay.
Hmm.
I think what I'm gonna do is because I led this particular effort, and I think I might want to rescind it because having chaired the joint committee and for outreach, there was ample time and there was a lot of energy around picking those particular topics, if you remember, Jason. Um, and no one came through. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to rescind the letter overall because there's a lack of engagement on this particular topic, although highly spoken of, but the action I'm not going to get. I don't feel as though I'm
What,
going to get.
what I encourage you to do for Robert rules, because
Sure.
I don't think a chair, co-chair combination can actually, now that's before the body. I think the body should make the decision, but
Sure.
that's speaking really strongly if you're going to be voting against it. So maybe we call the question now and just vote, and then if it fails, then we said it fails.
Okay.
I mean,
Thank
well,
you.
do we want to, so the plan is to just send nothing? I mean, do we want to thank them for the inclusion and limit it to that? So,
If I could help with Robert's rules here, Kane, as the maker of the motion, you're able to withdraw the motion.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you want to withdraw the motion, that's fine.
Yeah, let me withdraw the motion.
But then we have a question. Might you want to revisit this or get some more information so we can consider it at a future date? I mean, it's
No.
okay to say no. Okay, no, then we can
No.
move on.
Yeah,
Okay.
no. I think as I'm coming to co-chairing and we have a lot of things on our plate, and if we have to do the work at the end of the day if we want to move it forward. So I'm gonna kill it.
Okay.
Do we as a committee want to do any more research on this zoning update? Or um, I mean, I'm interested in the topic, so if it seems beneficial to the group, um, I can at least I don't even know. I know they're adopting it soon, right? Or that's my understanding.
Yeah.
Um,
As a committee member, yes, Sam, and then can we just put you down on the agenda that you're going to talk about it next time? So then the expectation is you'll do the research and update us on what you think to better inform us.
yeah, yeah, I could do that. I just I not to belabor people too much, but I have a project in the South LA CPIO district, and it's been difficult. So I've with these experiences of LA zoning recently, it's I'd like to dig into this one and see what the if I could explain any of the changes further to the group.
Thank you, Sam. So just so we're clear, the letter as presented and discussed, um, the motion has been rescinded. and Sam is going to follow up with area of interest regarding the story map. Correct? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I'll just try to give the group an update on the status of the zoning update on our next meeting. And if you guys have any other questions that you want me to look into, I can
Okay,
do that as well.
perfect.
So
Okay.
just feel free to reach out.
Okay. I'm gonna take back the gavel, if that's okay. Um, we can go to item, and again, I know the hour is late. We're at 7:30 here, so thank you, everybody. We'll get through this quickly. Traffic concerns, item 3B. There is a lot of, or from the community, there are traffic concerns. Um, as I mentioned earlier with Mike Tunney and the Gibson chassis project, we are looking to address the traffic concerns through the projects, Vincent Thomas Bridge, Phillips 66. Um, and there's an active task force or initiative group that is looking to focus on that inter-committee. So there's also the Youth and Outreach Committee that is involved in this with John Barbera and public safety as well. So there have been some inter-committee conversation on the issue of traffic and affecting the Northwest community. I'm opening it up to discussion, brief discussion on that, or soliciting people who would like to talk about traffic.
Well, that's a pretty broad topic. Is there some targeted concern or high points that we're addressing here?
There is a lack of communication. There is a lack of alternative routing that the community seems to be really hungry for, um, during these times. And there's a lot of anxiety around it that it's only going to get worse. So those three main areas is what the community or what I'm getting as feedback from stakeholders.
It absolutely will get worse before it gets better.
Yes. Yes, no doubt about it. But it's I feel like it's weighing on people a lot. The people now we have gas prices, but ultimately people are not excited about driving down here and spending money. And there's also another concern at the back of people's minds of if there's an emergency. And so whether it be fire or an
Tsunami.
explosion off the coast, there's some real concerns and we're not getting answers. There's definitely, there's a lot of conversation last year when we had those catastrophic fires in LA County. There was a really good discussion about when we were gonna design a plan, but that plan has yet to come. And so on top of the Olympics, on top of the bridge closure, you know, people are feeling like gridlock is already, they feel like it's already here.
Huh, they haven't seen anything yet.
Hmm. Well, in terms of solutions or the traffic.
Both. No
Yeah.
solutions, and they haven't seen it. All
Yeah.
so predictable. All so predictable.
Yeah.
Been
Um,
racing bikes for years.
yeah, you brought, I know you're keen to traffic, Jason. The 5 Points roundabout. Um,
What a
is
fantastic spot for roundabout.
um, would you be interested in continuing to be our traffic expert for our committee?
Well, what does that entail? I mean, I'm more of the transit advocate expert, but
Hmm.
traffic and what does that mean?
So myself, along with John, and then also I want to make you aware, if you didn't know, Ray Regalado the council president, he's also on the Transportation Department of Transportation Commission for the city. Okay. And so that gives us a little bit more insight
Is
as
that
well as
is that your,
resources.
or has Ray been on that for a while?
No, he might, it's hard to tell. But I
Anyway,
feel like he's getting some motion on it now. And so um has he been on it for a while or
I was just wondering if, I mean, I didn't know about that, so be curious to if he just, if he was
He's been
just,
on it for a couple years.
okay.
oh really?
Yeah,
Thank
he
you.
moved from, it was about 2024. He got moved from Bonk to the Transportation Commission.
Mm, thank you. So yeah, but nonetheless, there's some access there, Jason, in terms of getting some reports and getting some motion and conversation at this point. So um yeah. All right, that's just an update on traffic concerns. I would like to move on for the sake of time, everybody. Items 3C and D. Um, thank you for attending the meeting. We are looking to increase engagement, and thank you for those who jumped in on the call for the first time or meeting for the first time. But we do need more people to step in and up on the committee. Um, Myself and Dr. Thomas Norman, we've been able to create a schedule amongst the joint committee so that other people are chairing those joint meetings. We do have a schedule, and if you'd like the schedule, I could send it to you or attach it to the minutes in our report. But we are looking to share the work. But we want to also internally we want to step in and up on some things. And I know life is happening and there's a lot of stuff going on, but it would be appreciated. Okay.
Yes,
And
I think you should, sorry to interrupt. I
okay.
think you should include that. I you mentioned it at the last joint meeting that you and Thomas have worked out a schedule of the rotating uh hosting responsibility. And that would be good for us to know, so we know who to pester when we want something added to the agenda for the joint meeting. So yes, please put that draft schedule on in the minutes.
Okay. And then as far as internally, again, Thomas and I are newly working together. I'm excited about this co-chairpersonship. Um, we have a tracker, an internal tracker on how we are managing projects, so that not only we can stay abreast of, but also tracking it from ideation or idea slash project all the way to action. And so I will briefly show it here. Let's see. Let's see. Are you looking at my chat GPT screen or are you looking at my,
Right now it's just spinning.
okay, let's see what's going on here. Let me undo it and quickly redo it. I'm trying to close the meeting, everybody, so we're almost there. Okay. Okay. Can you
I,
see what are you
I
looking at
see
now?
I see a message that says that you've started screen sharing and it says double click to enter full screen mode, but I see no
Nothing
screen.
there. Okay. Oop. Alrighty. I'm on a call. Okay, and again, thank you for your patience, everybody.
same thing, but I don't know that we really need to see your planning tool.
No worries. So again, something's happening at this particular moment, but I can send a screenshot so everybody can see it.
That's good.
Okay. All right. Dr. Norman, or let me open it up to public comment. And I know we're about 9 minutes past our scheduled time.
I see no hands.
Okay. That being said, we'll close the meeting up at 7:39 on this glorious Wednesday. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And feel free to reach out. In our next meeting, our joint meeting will be on April 22nd.
All right. Thank you, Kane. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
All right.
All right.
Welcome to adjourn, close.
Have a great night.
Good night.